thought. Inside the Libertarian Party, some of these ideas seem like bread and butter to us, but it's going to blow a lot of hair back once we're in the general election. So I'm pretty excited about that. That means we're going to have to work doubly hard at maintaining our credibility. So our campaign works very hard at preserving our credibility online in all of our print material and all of our appearances. We talk detail, we talk plans, as well as transformational ideas. We talk about how we're going to get there, and we lean hard into my personal background in public service and public policy, both as a professional economist for a couple of decades and as a police officer for more than a decade as a second career in South Florida in Broward County, which of course is why I spend so much time talking not just about the usual federal issues, but talking about how we need to change the war on crime, the war on drugs, how we manage police officers, how we manage police agencies. I talk about that a lot. All of that is to say we need to preserve our credibility as well as run transformational ideas. And a big piece of maintaining our credibility as the third party is having ballot access in all 50 states.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and the hurdle in New York is huge this year. It used to be 15,000 signatures prior to 2018, but now it's 45,000 valid signatures, which means you got to have 65,000 total. And not only are we, triple the number, but we used to petition in July and August, and now it's April and May. So we're coming out of winter. I mean, 2 years ago, the 2022 campaign, we had a 3-day nasty snowstorm right at the beginning of the petitioning drive. So I'm looking at the forecast for next Tuesday, crossing fingers, no rain, looks like decent weather. It's important to get off to a hot start. So we really want to get out there and get the signatures. And I think an elephant in the room, and I mentioned this Sunday night when I had another live showing, because we weren't successful in 2022, we've got some people that are a little upset and maybe frustrated, and they're going to need a little motivation to get going again. So I think some of the people that are more positive and maybe the newcomers, so like some of your supporters there, Mike, it's important we get them out on the streets right away, that first day, that first week, and get the signatures and then mail them in. I'll put on the banner here the information for where to get to us if I can find it.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. In fact,
got to get them in soon.
Yeah, I would just add, Rich, that I too am one of those people who are grumpy and pissy and frustrated by the fact that we didn't make it last time, particularly because we had a shot and we got close and there was a lot of effort and we still didn't make it. So if you're one of those folks who's pissy and grumpy and frustrated and angry, you're in good company. But I don't want that to become the reason that we stand down and don't make the Herculean effort that we need to this time around. It is every bit as important. I would argue, of course, as a presidential candidate, I would argue it's even more important, right? For so many reasons, not just New York, but for our national image. And I agree with you, getting out of the blocks early, quick start. This will give us the chance to show some results, which will bring some more people in. Once people see that, we've got a real opportunity, a real chance here, I think that it will bring a lot of people in who want to be part of a winning program, right? We all know if people don't think you have a chance, they don't participate as robustly. Well, listen, we do have a chance. Everyone's got to get out there. The first week, the second week, these are the most important times. So I would encourage everyone to get out early. And, like you said, it's a month and a half, right? That is not a long period of time. So we need to get out, get at it. If someone wants to join up with me and my team, like I say, Buffalo, the Rochester area, Dutchess County on April 26, April 27, April 28. Great. Drop me an email. My contact information is at MikeTerMaat.com. Feel free to email me at Mike@MikeTerMaat.com. Drop me a text. My phone number is on the website, and we can figure out how to do some things together. But there's lots of groups, Rich, as you know, there's lots of groups all over New York State making plans to join in here or there, big groups, little groups. And look, you can go out on your own, carve out a few hours, go stand in a Walmart parking lot, go knock on some doors. I've done this work in the past. It's not easy work. It can be hard work, but to be honest, and look, I don't mean to, blow smoke here. The truth is, if you have the right attitude about it, it can be fun. It can be engaging. People appreciate hard work. They appreciate seeing you out there with your clipboard and, your visor, doing the leg work, whether it's door to door or standing in a parking lot. People warm to the idea, boy, here's some, guy or gal willing to get out here. Maybe this person is worth listening to. You probably don't want to take 15 minutes to deliver someone your latest thesis on libertarian thought, but just the idea that you'd be out there trying to push for democracy by getting another party on the ballot, that's something that a lot of people are going to be receptive to. And so remember, this is a twofer. Not only are you collecting signatures, but you're passing the message at the same time. So it's all good.
Yeah. Mike, I always enjoyed your slogan, your Gold New Deal. Could you give us a few minutes expose on what your Gold New Deal is all about?
You bet. As you know, it is pushing for a new relationship between us and government. The name implies we're making a little bit of fun of President Roosevelt and his original New Deal. No question about that. We're making a little bit of fun of AOC's Green New Deal. You get that. It's named after gold being the color of our party. The big theme here is limiting the power of the government and decentralizing what authority we allow to the federal government and to the states. So the flagship is the idea of giving states a way to opt out of federal supremacy, an opportunity to resolve conflicts between state law and federal law in state court. In that way, it's a version of unilateral nullification. There are those, Rich, who have teased me a little bit who say, gee, why can't we just pass the 10th Amendment over again and say this time we mean it? Which I think is a great idea. Actually, I'm not sure politically that I would be willing to try that, by the way, but I'm not sure that would be any easier a lift. But it also includes changing the way that we manage schools, changing the way that we manage police officers, giving the private sector a bigger role, allowing, for example, government involvement in our primary and secondary education, a phase out completely. It means ending mandatory transactions like Social Security. We need to shut down this whole idea of recruiting forcibly young people into a program that guarantees them a crappy rate of return. As I often say, this is not a math problem or even an economics problem. That's an ethics problem. That's a values problem. That's a violation of our principles. We need to change that. We need to, for example, change the relationship between us and the federal government that is so financial in other ways as well. I believe that we need to get rid of the IRS and rather force the federal government to go to state legislatures to the extent to which it needs funding. This whole idea of having a direct relationship to individuals, whether that's through a sales tax, property tax, or income tax, that direct relationship is really problematic. Anyone who's ever been audited by the IRS, as I have been, knows that is a messed up, lopsided relationship in which you are presumed guilty until you can prove your innocence. That is not an appropriate relationship. We need the states to stand in between us and the federal government, stand up for our rights. I believe that one of the reasons the federal government does spend so much money is because it steamrolls over us, right? Our democratically elected representatives in Washington do a crappy job of stopping spending. We need to try something else. And I think that something else could well be state legislatures that would give us a chance to control them a little bit better than we've obviously been able to control Washington. So that's just a few aspects of it. Obviously, bodily autonomy is a huge part, both in terms of individuals getting rid of, this stupid idea that governments think they have the right to mandate that we take a vaccine, or they have the right to mandate that we don't do other certain things with our body, whether anyone thinks it's a good idea or not, as well as the corporate level. We need to get the government out of our corporate lives as well in any number of ways, from corporate bailouts to manipulating our businesses with tax breaks and crap like this. That's all got to end. So it's a package of the most transformational ideas, but all geared toward changing the relationship between us and government, which I believe is so critical and so fundamental.
Yeah, the essence of libertarianism is that, we believe, free people believe in general, that we can better run our lives than someone else. That's what it comes down to. We don't want central authority. And as you say, the further that central authority is away from us, the less they know about us and the less likely they are to execute a plan that's in our favor. So if there does have to be any governing, because governing essentially is a monopoly on the use of force. If I've got to be forced to do something, well, the guy in my local
That's
town,
a bad sign, huh?
It's a bad sign to start with, but the guy in my local town's probably going to have a little more of my self-interest, and I have certainly a better lever to go yell at him if he's not looking out for my self-interest than someone 2,000 miles away in Washington. So yeah, it's
well, I agree with you wholeheartedly, and that's why decentralization is such an important element of all of the libertarian platform in our party and around libertarian thought in the Gold New Deal. By the way, people that want to read about it can go to goldnewdeal.org, which is a website that's easier to spell than MikeTerMaat.com. MikeTerMaat.com is kind of tricky because there's two A's in Ter Maat, but goldnewdeal.org is a little bit easier to spell, so people can read about the platform there. Thanks. I appreciate that. And read about our platform. It has its URL and its own branding because it's our commitment that we are not going to back up on it come general election time. This is a heavy-handed commitment to that platform of principles. And I believe that committing to a platform of principles is the right thing to do, both ethically and in terms of branding our party and in terms of strategy. I think the right strategy this year is to differentiate us from Republicans, from Democrats. And the way to do that is to run on as principled platform as absolutely possible.
Okay. One other loaded question here for you, Mike. If you're nominated as president, you would be taking Larry Sharp's place. If
nobody can take Larry Sharp's place.
Larry is the temporary candidate in New York for president on the petition drive, so you'd be taking his place.
Yeah.
If you weren't nominated for president, would you consider running for vice president? Is that a consideration of yours? And if so,
I have not given it a tremendous amount of thought. If I thought that I could add value, if I thought that it was a good fit, just like when looking for a VP to back up my own ticket, if I should secure the nomination, as I believe I probably will, we need to find someone that reinforces the central theme that my campaign represents. So it has to be someone who brings a lot of credibility, who can contribute to that credibility, both in terms of competition and in terms of policy, and someone who is comfortable with a fairly radical platform, right? As people will see when they look at the Gold New Deal, it is a collection of really transformational ideas. So it has to be someone who's comfortable with that, not someone who, gains comfort from the idea that we need to emphasize the practicality of certain things, or someone who is more comfortable looking for smaller reforms, I guess is how I would put it. It has to be someone who's fairly comfortable. And so that's the answer to both of those questions. If I secure the nomination, who should be the VP or vice versa? It's a matter of fitting together to reinforce the right message.
Right. Yeah, and with the timing of everything as it is, again, the nomination is at the very end of the petition cycle here in New York. I mean, and there's actually a limited amount of time to make the substitution. So let's say our national convention was mid-June. Well, then our temporary candidates would be stuck. They would not be able to be replaced if the.
Right.
And I know you and I talked when we met a year and a half ago that we really would like to see movement towards the nominating convention being several months earlier. I mean, my preference.
January.
Yeah, I wish it was in November of the following year while people were still fresh in their minds between Election Day and Thanksgiving, like jammed in the middle. People were still, kind of hungover from election.
Yeah, I get that, but at the
Usually
very least, we should be moving it
with crappy
sooner
candidates.
by
Maybe that'd be a
minimum
good
4
time to have a
months.
30. Yeah. And I know you've been campaigning pretty much for 2 years now, right?
That's exactly right.
Give or
We
take?
started out with
Right.
no name recognition, so my team figured there's no point in delaying. There's no value in us being coy about this, right? We believe in hard work. We've gotten our message out. We've built up name recognition and familiarity. We're giving people a chance to give us a good look. I think that a lot of people are going to give us a hard look over the next month or so here, the next 6 weeks. And I look forward to that. People, reach out directly. I love the conversations that are just one-on-one, but we're going to have team discussions and town hall meetings. So people are going to have a chance to kick the tires even more than they have already.
And New York State, even though we don't necessarily have we certainly don't have a strong elected Libertarian president, elected Libertarian public officials as some other states,
Right.
but we have a fairly good-sized delegation. So,
Yeah.
so we have quite a few people going to Washington, D.C. to help determine the nomination. I'm not one of them. My focus is to stay here and work on this petition drive. But we
Thanks
have
for doing it.
Yeah, quite a few people coming from New York to D.C. to help decide who's going to be the nominee. So all the more reason again for supporters of Mike to help out here in New York, because that will be noticed by our delegates, and those delegates will then we're more likely to nominate Mike here at the end of May. So
Sure. Well, I
yeah.
appreciate that, but it's you speak truth, Rich. But as you and I also know, there's a lot more at stake here than just political posturing, right? Those of us who do care, we need to get out and do the legwork. Those of us who recognize that we have a lot at stake as a party. Yeah, I do personally because I'm in the presidential race, but as libertarians, as members of the party, we recognize that we have a tremendous amount at stake. Just think about all the conversations that we've had over the past couple of years, being able to say that the Joe and Spike ticket, is on the ballot in every state. That's a big deal. That has been a big deal, right? We want to be able to say that going forward. People are impressed by that, as I believe that they should be.
I'm going to share one comment here. Maybe we'll close off with answering this question. What do you think is the greatest threat facing America today? I mean, there's so many. I mean, what would you say is the biggest right now, number one?
The number one threat, and this might sound categorical, but I don't really mean it as such. I truly believe, and I probably haven't said this clearly enough going forward. Good for you for asking the question most people don't ask. I believe the biggest threat to America is the federal government of the United States doing something truly moronic to accelerate its own demise. The financial path that we're on suggests that the federal government of the United States will not survive past the middle of this century. One of the things that I worry about is that collapse. And by the way, don't mishear me. It's not like I'll miss it or you'll miss it or Rich, you'll miss it. No one will miss it, right? It's not like, we believe the federal government of the United States is adding a lot of value to anybody's life. The reason I fear that is because I'm afraid that a financial collapse of the federal government will bring down the dollar, and the dollar is the only reserve currency in the world today worth a damn. That's another problem we need to talk about. We need more competitive currencies, but at the moment it is the only reserve currency internationally speaking, and the collapse of the dollar would plunge the world into a depression that would take, in my estimation, generations to climb out of. Without a reserve currency, with a complete collapse of financial markets, getting out of a depression that was worldwide and deep would really be problematic. I'm afraid it would set us back economically for generations, not just for years or decades. And what I fear is that not only will we not correct course in time, but I fear that the federal government will do something stupid, even by federal government standards. I realize that's saying something. Would do something stupid by their own standards that would accelerate that demise. And that can come in a couple of different flavors. One thing I worry about is, for example, all of the military interventions that we undertake in our name by our Defense Department in the federal government, all of these interventions, all of which have gone so badly that many Republicans and many Democrats refuse to characterize as such, as having been disasters. We all know, however, they've gone very, very badly. I worry that at some point we get ourselves into a situation that's even more difficult from which to extract ourselves than it has been in the past. And so whereas we recognize that Afghanistan and Iraq were complete disasters that cost over 1 million lives, so I don't want to minimize what has happened already. But having said that, I worry that at some point we get into one of these things and it's very difficult to extricate ourselves without bringing in other superpowers into a really global conflict. So, for example, I worry what happens if the federal government of the United States decides it doesn't like the way the People's Republic is blockading Taiwan. What happens if our government decides it doesn't like the Iranian Guard attacking Israel? What happens if our government decides it doesn't like a larger conflict between Russia and a European nation? I fear that these interventions over and over and over and over again, just based on statistics, eventually we get into one of these things that blows up instead of giving us the chance to get out. In this sense, I think that we've been whistling past the graveyard for generations in terms of our crappy foreign policy. And I worry that at some point we spin the wheel once too often.
Yeah, good answer. I mean, I would have gone in that same direction, saying I think our national debt is our biggest threat right now. And it's, as you say,
and if we get into a real bad war, that's going to accelerate our financial problem. I also believe that there are other types of conflicts that can accelerate that problem. Another virus, or the federal government of the United States deciding it's going to leverage Americans' fear regarding environmental change, and all of a sudden commandeers all kinds of economic resources. Use your imagination, right? There's all kinds of stupid things our government not only has done, but has threatened to do and can dream up at any given moment. And the scale of some of these interventions in our economy and around the world, the scale has just become so large. Our statist politicians are now so full of hubris. There seems to be no holds barred any longer in terms of what they won't do to manipulate Americans' fear and to take over our economy, to use our foreign policy to project military hegemony for no interest of the American people, only in their own interest as politicians. There just seems to be no barriers, no limits anymore. And I fear that one of these days, something they will do will accelerate our financial collapse.
I agree. Yeah. All righty. Any closing thoughts, Mike?
That should sum it up. Look, I feel badly that we ended on a really dark place there. I do think that was an important question. But I think it is worth mentioning, Rich, that we have an opportunity to really contribute to turning things around. As a Libertarian Party, we have a big opportunity. I do think this is our call of duty. I think this is our obligation to get it right. That means we've got to do some things differently than how we've done them in the past. We need to run on a transformational platform, very principled, very differentiating from the other parties. And we need to be credibly competitive. And I think that we can do that. That starts with ballot access in New York and Illinois. I'll be going out to Illinois in May. for a couple of days. We've got a battle there too. I'm more optimistic about Illinois getting the resources out to nail that one down. New York is going to be a battle and a half, and I think that you and your people are up for it, and I'm up for making a contribution to helping out.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, that's the big emphasis, is that it isn't just about New York. I mean, it's very beneficial to get our candidates on the ballot in all 50 states. It gives us a lot more credibility with the media, a lot more credibility with voters. You know, we're just a lot more received if we have a candidate on the ballot in all 50 states. If we blow even just one or two states, let's say it's 47, 48, some other parties have done that, you know, not quite 50, 45, 46. You could see what it does. The media just tends to blow them off. It's like, well, you're not on all 50 states, so we're not really going to pay attention to you. We have, you look at past elections, 2012, 2016, 2008, there's some recent elections where the Libertarian Party got all 50 states, and a couple other, you know, third parties did their best, but didn't quite get 50 states. And there was a pretty big fall off between the coverage, media coverage, and attention that the Libertarian Party got versus those other third parties. So yeah,
there's nothing like benefit. 50, baby. There's nothing like it.
Yep. It makes a big difference. So it's a big value to New York. It's a big value to every person interested in the liberty movement in the country, really, to see each state get someone on the ballot. So with that, we'll close it. Thanks everybody for listening in, and thank you again very much, Mike, for sharing your vision.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks for everything that you're doing.
Appreciate it. Have a good night.